After the overnight success of Friday the 13th, Paramount was eager for a sequel. The Friday the 13th series became something of a cash cow for Paramount, who is known for owning huge franchises like Star Trek and Indiana Jones. But the first Friday the 13th was made for so little and reaped the rewards of a giant return. At one point, I believe it was reported to make more of a profit than The Empire Strikes Back did that year. If you really think about it, Friday the 13th ended perfectly. There was really no way to continue the story. Mrs. Voorhees is killed, sorry for the spoiler, and her son is put to rest. Or so we think. The film's director, Sean Cunningham, didn't want Jason to be the killer in the sequel because he felt it made the story too supernatural and silly. His version of the sequel would have been to do an entirely different story altogether that also took place on Friday the 13th, making the franchise more of an anthology series. Sound familiar? Halloween fans might be reminded of Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, in which John Carpenter attempted the same thing, and failed. The directing reins were handed over to Steve Miner, and in the series' first sequel, Jason does in fact become the next killer. It starts off with Alice, the survivor of the first film, being immediately killed off. This always disturbed me because we spent the first movie rooting for Alice's survival, while Part 2 pretty much says screw that, and has her killed off in the first 5 minutes. Plus, I never understood how Jason figured out where she lived, because she obviously lives far from the vicinity of Crystal Lake. The majority of the film takes place 5 years after the original, which would actually take place in the future. The first movie took place in present-day 1980, so for whatever reason the filmmakers decided to set it in the near future. Once again, the camp is reopened, allowing a new generation of counselors to return. The actual location of the campgrounds is located just up the road from the actual Crystal Lake, which is off limits, but that doesn't stop the counselors from sneaking in to get a glimpse.
Look, when we get back to the city, we can tell everyone we were there. Oh, come on, you chicken shit.
The rest of the film is a basic retread of the first film. Without Tom Savini to apply the special effects, the kills are entertaining enough, but nowhere near as gruesome as those seen in the original. I think the fan favorite here would be where Mark, a guy in a wheelchair, takes a machete in the face and rolls violently down a set of stairs to his death. The filmmakers still didn't have much of a design for Jason this time around, so they had him wear a potato sack throughout the duration of the movie. If you notice, the sack only has one eye hole cut into it, so Jason appears disoriented and clumsy for many of his scenes. There's also a little dispute concerning who actually played Jason. Warrington Gillette, a stuntman, was credited with portraying Jason throughout the entire film. However, it was later revealed that originally an actor named Steve Daskowitz was cast to play Jason. Apparently, both actors appear in the film. I guess the distinction is that Steve Daskowitz played Jason with the mask on, running around during the chase scenes, while Warrington Gillette portrayed Jason unmasked toward the end of the movie. And yet, there was some kind of dispute between the actors, and Warrington Gillette was credited for the part, even though Jason only shows up unmasked during the very last scene. I always liked how the film adds a psychological layer to the Jason myth. The protagonist, Ginny Field, played by Amy Steele, is a budding psychologist who analyzes Jason's psyche and later uses reverse psychology to fight him off.
Use a little of that child psychology you're majoring in. Try it.
It's more fun using that child psychology on you. You're such a sucker for it. A frightened retard? A child trapped in a man's body?
I felt this was pretty clever and one-ups it a notch over its predecessor, making the climax a little more thrilling. The one thing I never understood, and something that bugs a lot of fans, is what happened to Ginny's boyfriend, Paul. Reportedly, the actor John Fury never came to the set for the last day of shooting, so I guess we all assume he died in trying to save Ginny from Jason's last assault. But they never actually show what happened to him. It's a minor thing, but one that bears answering.
Paul? Where's Paul?
I'm not sure if I like this one better than the original, as it follows the exact same formula. The characters are just as interesting, if not just as dumb, and aside from Jason being the killer, the story doesn't advance. The lack of Tom Savini doesn't help, but the ending is what really makes up for it. For what it's worth, it's as good of a sequel as they could have made.
Okay, you two, take off, and I'll talk to you at dinner.
You're not even going to reprimand him? No punishment? What kind of place is this?
Ginny,
Yes, Paul.
no seconds on dessert for Jeff and Sandra tonight.